so we will share with you tonight, and I think a lot of really good things are going to come up. So first, I'd like to thank all of these artists who came tonight to support this discussion, which is really important. I want to thank Courtney for her undying support of what we do. I mean, it just never ends. It's insane. And then I would also like to thank our dream team, Devo and Jonah Stern. These humans make all of this possible. They do all the heavy lifting. They snap to attention. They talk to the public. They hang wall tags. They hang art. They sweep after us. They chase us. They clean toilets. No, just kidding. So maybe a little bit. But I want to thank them. I want to thank everyone here tonight. And I don't want to take up much more time, but I do want to introduce Jonah formally. Jonah's come on as an understudy. It's been almost a year. Stanford grad in creative writing. I knew I was going to mess that up. I'm going to let Jonah talk about that. Whatever. Jonah walked in and said, hey, I want to be involved. I want to help. And I said, great. What is your superpower? And they said, writing and talking to artists and doing biographies about artists and learning about them. And I love that because artists have such unique stories and histories and perspectives to share. And as we work to get better at this, it's really important that we have someone who can help us document a lot of this. So I want to thank Jonah for throwing in out of the gate. Now he's been here and is our gallery assistant. Devo is our communal table door person who welcomes the community in and talks to strangers and slings this program to every person who walks by, and that will give him the time of day. And he's been with us for a long time and knows this person since they were a kid. So I want to thank them for being here tonight too. Okay, so now I'm going to turn the mic over to Jonah, and they're going to lead us through an engaging conversation. If you are in the gallery right now and you're looking at books and you want to participate in our discussion, I wholeheartedly welcome you to come join us. You may know someone sitting here. You may know something that you want to contribute or have a question you want to ask. We absolutely encourage it. So, here we go.
Thank you, Renee. I think before we get into some questions, we'll do little introductions from all of the artists. Just tell us a bit about yourself, what brought you to the space, and we'll use that as a jumping off point to get into the rest of the discussion for tonight. So we'll start with Koshi.
Hi, I'm Koshi. I have been, I found myself fell into this community of art here in San Francisco after being in San Francisco for a very long time. I've painted for about a year and 10, 11-ish months, but have found an incredible community here, like the ones that I'm finding here at the Drive.
Hi, I'm Katie Petro. I'm a sculptor. I make ceramics. I did a lot of street art you may have seen during the pandemic. I also own K&K Contemporary, which is entirely why you should never bring these women a bottle of pink wine and tell them you have an idea. But we'll go probably more into that. But yeah.
Hi, my name is Brecken Flournoy, and I'm a photographer and a dancer. And I am new to the gallery. I just started getting to know the gallery at Super Harbor Local, which I was in, and now I have something up at the San Francisco Women's Art Gallery across town, and in some publications. But it's really nice to be here, and I'm also on your advisory board. Okay.
Hi, I'm Lorraine Woodruff Long. I'm a fiber artist, quilter, and teacher. And I'm new to this art world too. Really happened in the pandemic, which we'll talk more about later. But I met Renee and team probably 4 years ago. Was in this show, and then did a little grant writing for you a long time ago. But I really credit them a lot with helping getting me off the ground and then taking off. And so, looking forward to talking about that more.
Okay, I'll introduce myself. My name is Courtney Morris. I'm one of the curators here. We wear a lot of hats with the drawing room. mostly in pop-up spaces. So the drawing room was a natural extension of what I was already doing. So thanks for being here. My name is Renee DiCarlo. I'm an artist, a mixed media artist, and I have a lot to say, but I won't. My art practice right now is in conceiving shows of art, and then also big public artworks that we do within our shows, and getting young people involved in these projects. So my creative pursuits have evolved since I started the drawing room, but are still there.
Hello, I'm Sabrina Devlin. I'm primarily a photographer, and I got involved with the drawing room through first exposures and an exhibition there, and grew to love Courtney and Renee. And I think it's just a beautiful place where you can see work from so many people in the same community and the neighborhoods around you. And I'm glad to be here. Hi, I'm Mariana Moreno Gonzalez, and I'm born and raised in the Bay Area. I started the drawing room in 2021 Women's Rising show. I got to show my first piece, and I connect with art. I'm a portrait artist, portrait painter, and I connect with art in a very spiritual meaning way, and sort of something like to process art.
Good evening, buenas noches. My name is Luis Garcia. I'm an artist based in Oakland at this point in time, but my artistic journey actually began here in San Francisco, so it's kind of been a full circle in some ways. I got introduced to the drawing rooms through their home show, and that show was really powerful. There's a lot of different visions and ideas about what home meant to artists in that sense, and I focused my piece on homelessness, and I really was moved by what they were doing here and all the different shows that I participated in. I've been really, really proud to be in them, and just really happy to see a place like the drawing room and Courtney and Renee and how they develop ideas and shows that really have a lot of meaning and significance. My current piece right now is about missing and murdered Indigenous women, the triptych that I have here, and it was for the consumer show that they had in the past, and uses material that I found on the street in Oakland, and it really kind of evokes kind of the idea of disposed in some ways and not thought of, and I thought it was very fitting for that type of piece that I was making. So thank you everybody for coming out.
I'm Thomas Timestone. I'm a painter, writer, photographer, and all kinds of other stuff. I came to the drawing room after a show. I saw the community and I thought that I felt like I needed to be part of it, so I ambushed Renee out in front, and she invited me to be part of it, and I've been part of it ever since. I'm mostly a colored painter. I paint abstracts, so I've never found a color that I didn't fall in love with.
Well, thanks, y'all. I think what I'm interested in, what we're all interested in, is to get to some kind of central nugget about what it feels like to be an artist in this city, in this world right now, how you get your pieces seen, what it feels like to get your pieces seen, what you notice about who gets their work shown and who doesn't. So we hope to get into all of that tonight. And I think a good starting point is just to ask to the group, if you want to answer, pick up a mic. How do you get your art out into the world? What does that process look like for you? Does it change depending on the piece or the day? And we'll go from there. Is there anyone who wants to?
I feel inclined to start this conversation, only because the drawing room was founded out of disparity. As an artist, I wanted to create a space where people could experience my studio practice, but also engage in art that was also being made among other artists in the same paradigm of the Bay Area that I'm in. And I thought how wonderful it could be to have like an open studios model all the time, where you never know who's gonna walk by, who's gonna step into your space, who's gonna ask a question, or what they'll be drawn to. I think as artists, we are often intimidated to go into galleries. It's hard to get representation here also. I think it's the same for collectors. They don't know what's expected of them. And so when I founded the drawing room, it was really about creating that open, accessible space that people could engage in day or night. They could walk by at night and it would be beautifully illuminated, and people could see the art and they could experience it and think about it and possibly come back and come inside next time. Sometimes it takes people years to actually come inside after going by day after day. I hear it all the time, and it's such an interesting social experiment. Everything is. And I thought when I started this, it would be help my studio practice, but what actually happened was that it benefited a lot of other people, and everything shifted from there. So I just wanted to share that foundation, and now I'm talking about it.
So, thank you for letting me go first. I have a variety of outlets. As a dancer, there's a lot of different, I apply my dance training to my photography, and as a result of that, I don't feel that I'm bound by a lot of the rules that visual artists learn, because I'm coming at it from such a different place. So it's a very intuitive and spiritual place, and always shaped by form. So I do a lot of dance photography, particularly documentation and working with movement, and I excel at capturing the peak moment in the air. And that's because as a dancer, I can follow the movement and see the preparation and when it's going to happen and click. And I do a lot of live performance, mostly live performance, because even though those are extremely difficult conditions within which to shoot, especially for lighting and things like that, it is the most rewarding and energetic capture that you can have. And so I've been doing that for years, and through that, I've been getting published in media, ad campaigns, and things like that. Through the drawing room, which I just came to, I have started a different tactic, which is the gallery space, and actually taking my photos, which are published often, and printing them out. And so this is a great supportive environment for someone like me who has skills and sitting on a mountain of work and wants to just show and get it out there. And so that's the stage I'm in. So it's a really pleasant transition, and working with trying to find the audience and the appropriate avenues to get in front of people. But right now it's throwing spaghetti at the wall.
As a quilter and a fiber artist, there's wonderful opportunities. There's quilt shows and things. Sometimes my work is back here. I do things that are mostly abstract improvisational quilting, and I do a whole lot of commentary about abortion rights and climate change and so forth. And sometimes the quilt show world really isn't into my commentary quilts. And so, and which is fine. But sometimes they surprise me. They'll be really surprised what they like to do. But I kind of came about, I've been quilting for years, and the pandemic hit. I lost my real job and was coping by, and was not finding another job, and was coping by just sitting in my garage and quilting like a fiend. And I really started I really advise other people to, the more you play, the more you win. So I really was entering every show that I could. What was a big transition for me was getting into art art galleries and art shows as opposed to just quilt shows. And there's kind, you know, in some worlds there's a lot of attitude about, or you know, there's sort of a disdain for the craft of, you know, quilting and fiber. I definitely feel like that's changing, and we're really lucky because we have a lot of great fiber. A lot of great fiber artists and quilters are being shown through the DeYoung and of course MoMA, and there's a lot of an amazing BAMFA exhibit that's going on right now. But I think for me, it was just really just encouraging people to put yourself out there. The more you play, the more you win. The challenge is it's expensive to apply to these shows. And so that's one thing where you guys made it very accessible for me. And honestly, I think I was in the show, it might have been the Land, or no, the Air show. And then you had the Up in Arms, after the women's, after Roe fell, and I was frantically making 15 quilts to vet my feelings about that subject. And you put in all 15 of my pieces, and they were big, and they were and you hung them really beautifully. But honestly, I think it really put me on the map. I mean, people saw it, people love taking pictures of it and taking pictures with themselves and reposting it. So kind of doing something surprising in the quilt world helps. But you really gave me exposure and that I had not had up until that time. So I really credit with you guys for that. So thank you.
I would like to dovetail into Lorraine. They asked us to prepare a little bit for tonight, so I wanted to tell you guys how to be lucky. Because my whole thing is it's all about being lucky. It's like how far you can get. But I've been gaming my luck recently using my knowledge of statistics. And Lorraine said it perfectly, like the more you put yourself out there, the more things will fall into your lap for no good reason. And I really want to encourage all of you to use like the rules of natural science, like statistics, to help yourselves have a better lived spiritual existence. Like, put yourself out there more, you get more luck. All the pay-to-play galleries, there's like a lot of them. That maybe isn't so lucky because it's expensive and there's gatekeeping when an entry fee is $45. But like when the entry fee is $10, there's going to be a lot more people, and then you'll meet those people. So that's my thing. And then related to that is it doesn't have to be hard. Like you could roll your quilts out and display them on the street and make people look at them during Sunday streets or whatever, the Valencia Street Party Hour or whatever it's called. So that's my propaganda for the evening is like put yourself out there. If you think it's all about luck, I agree with you, but luck is a statistics game. So make yourself more lucky by doing more to help yourself move forward. We all have whatever our luck is, but more throughput makes it, the numbers are kind of more likely to hit.
I found that once I started painting, people had a predetermined idea of what I would paint, how I would paint, and the subjects I would go for. And once I stepped out of that, then they didn't know where to put me. So having a place like this, where there's a multitude of people paint different things, people have different ideas, different backgrounds, different ways of doing it opens up people's minds. Because they look at this stuff and they say, oh, well, it doesn't have to be this way, it doesn't have to be that way. And that helps. Putting yourself out there, $45 for an entry fee sounds crazy to me.
Yeah.
Especially when you don't get it back if you don't get in. So there's that. I don't know if people know that. If you put in for a show and you don't get chosen, they don't give you your money back. So there's that. There's also a whole world of the internet. There's eBay, there's all kinds of things like that. Once I started putting myself out there, I realized that people had expectations. Like, oh, you do this, could you do me another one of these? Could you make this for my couch? Could you do that? Could you put my child in it? No, I can't. I don't do commissions, I don't paint people's pets, I don't do anything like that. But I hear that pretty much every other day. So, that's that.
impressed with social media. I'm super new to this. Again, I started painting less than 2 years ago. I was fortunate enough to have a solo exhibition at the Incline, which is down the street from here. And that's actually where I first met Renee. She brought 40 individuals on some random day to the gallery and really got a whole bunch of eyeballs on my work. I didn't know, I still don't know, to be quite honest, how to get my work out there. I'm terrible at it. I'm almost always just post to Instagram. And one of the things that happens, I think as Thomas was also talking about, is you get this post and all of a sudden it takes off. And you get all of these likes. And I look at that and I'm like, I have no idea why. And I try to do it again. And it doesn't happen. And this, I think, is the rub with the algorithm and social media in general and those types of things. And so I think that there is something that is very difficult and very precarious about social media and art right now, which I haven't fully unpacked. Suffice to say, I just use Instagram because it also helps me be like, hey, what's your work look like on Instagram? You can check out my Instagram. It's easy and I think it's good for that. But when I think about what I do get out there, one of the ways that I think social media is good is that it allows me to connect to those who I admire. So there's another artist here in San Francisco who I really love his work. I went to his closing panel. His name is David Mensler. He is a painter here in San Francisco who I absolutely admire. And so I follow him and I try to connect to him via social media, and I was able to connect to him. And I had sort of these side conversations with him about color and about painting. And what I get from that is this sort of recognition of who I want to be a peer of, who I aspirationally want to be noticed by. And I think that is the thing that is, I think, important about these channels. But about why I also go out into the world in San Francisco to go to those shows, to go to his closing, to go to the artist. There's another artist here, his name is Kevin Leon. He lives, I think, on 22nd Street, like right around here. And like, I love his work. And so I made it a point when he had his solo show going on at the Upper Market Gallery to go and like try to meet him. And that's kind of the way that I get out there. It's like, I look for those who I admire and try to aspirationally be sort of like I hopefully one day to become one of their peers.
So, kind of to build on that thought of social media and artist presence, I started photography and learning about it. First exposures were in 2018, 2019. So First Exposures is a youth mentor photography program. So it's a free program where they essentially place you with a mentor who will help you along this class or journey of learning photography, so you can kind of connect and also learn with each other along the way. And during this time, I started learning, but then with the pandemic and everything, I was just at that point of starting to branch off into galleries and expanding that way. But then that's when social media came in and bringing things onto that scene. And through a certain amount of time, I gained sort of those expectations of what I would take photos of, or what I would normally do is I would take a lot of photos of like hardcore shows as they were coming back, or like punk shows, abandoned buildings, that sort of thing. And so people kind of expect to see that, and if there's anything that's outside of that sort of circle, it's not seen as, I guess, as well received, I guess. And so I feel like being able to branch into galleries like this one or the drawing room or places that people see those that I can talk with and sort of understand what I'm going for versus someone seeing it online and just kind of passing through it. I'll never be able to talk with that person or see what their thoughts are about it. And I feel like that's something that's really nice about a community place like this, is because you can be very connected to these people who you might be a fan of or like want to talk to about their process. And online, it's like you just see that 2D image of them. You don't really get to know about them or their process or how they ended up where they are. I enjoy that aspect of it.
I got into my art practice by accident. I was suppressing, I guess, the artist inside myself for a long time, and it came out when I was processing grief. I had lost my dog to cancer, and I had space to paint in. So I started my journey with but it's not just the final image, it's the process of honoring the unconditional love, of transmuting the grief into life again. And I shared through social media first, so I just like something like in 2021 shared it on Facebook, like what I made, and people started asking for their own. But because art was my healing journey, I had more to say, and that's where these spaces have been great, because it's challenged me to expose a very vulnerable side of myself, to go into me and share my story. So I'm kind of have two worlds where I offer a service to a pet loving community, and then I have the gallery space to share how important it is to feel. And I use portrait work mainly because I just love paying attention to the details of the human face. And the portrait work is more human based. So I did a self-portrait of myself. I did a piece about grief using my cousin's face, and there's like nature elements to it and stuff, sort of like surreal looks to it, because trying to talk more about emotions and things. But that's, I guess I wasn't trying to be an artist. I just couldn't suppress that side of myself anymore, and shared my story, and been grateful for these sort of spaces to validate that my story matters. And when I go into these galleries that accept my work, and I see how people respond, and they see themselves in that, to me, it makes my work feel more than just a beautiful thing that's on the wall that's for sale. It's a reflection of what people need to feel and see in that moment. And it serves that purpose. It's my energetic expression on the wall. It's being received and continuing the gallery space.
I'm going to start kind of when I first started out as an artist really quick and just talk a little bit about my experiences in that way of trying to get into shows. And at that point, you had to go and document your work and get slides made and send a slide carousel and have them. So I'm talking about a different way of kind of trying to put your work out there than it is now in some ways. So to me, coming from that background and having that background, the way it is now, it's way more accessible to a lot more people, which is a great thing, I think, in a lot of different ways. But I also wanted to say that for me, the reason I got into art making was that I was born in El Salvador, and came here to this country and was raised here literally almost all my life. And so I had no connection to where I came from except for my parents and my family in some ways, but not really understanding anything deeper in that way. It wasn't until I moved to San Francisco and I met artists here, and they were painters and doing a lot of different type of artwork. This is in the mid-90s. And they kind of showed me a world that I really loved and I wanted to be a part of, so I decided to start taking classes at City College. I took a Mesoamerican art and art history class there that really opened my eyes about the cultures that kind of flourished from where I'm from, Mesoamerica, the Mesoamerican cultures that existed both in Mexico and in Central America and in South America as well. But I mostly focused on the ones in Central America and really started kind of feeling a connection or wanting to have a connection, creating a bridge. To me, there's a huge disconnection in that way of who I am and where I come from. And I feel like art is still kind of that bridge that I keep working on to try to reconnect. And so I started my journey in that sense, and I started out as a sculptor and a jewelry maker, and eventually I moved on into painting, continued a little bit with sculpture in that way. And it was very hard to kind of get into shows at that time for me. Not so much that there weren't shows or galleries in that sense, but I felt that the representation of the type of work that I was making was not being as appreciated as it is now in that sense. And so it always was something that was in the back of my head that I wanted to kind of have that be, I wanted to kind of be a champion in some ways for myself, but also for the things that I believed in that way. So a lot of the work that I create kind of reflects a lot of the culture that I'm from, but also cultures that I admire, mostly indigenous cultures globally in that way. And so a lot of the work that I create really revolves around that. And I feel that now there's a research, or not a resurgence, but there's an appreciation in that way. And there's a kind of wider understanding and an allowance, which I think it should have been in this way, to kind of have a visual voice. I did go to art school, and in art school I felt that there was a lot of focusing on European art, and I always thought about that in that way, and I always thought that there was something missing in that sense. And now I'm really proud to see so many flourishing, really amazing artists that are expressing themselves in the kind of way that I feel that I want to connect to. And so as far as showing, for me, that's kind of first and foremost. I kind of look for spaces that seem open and accepting of that. And sometimes I like to challenge myself in a way and say, I'm going to push it and see if the work itself can command that kind of idea. And in these spaces that I felt that I wasn't allowed to kind of have that representation before. And I've been very fortunate in that sense. Like you were saying earlier, I think somebody said something about luck. And I think for me, that's kind of the way I see it as well. It's also about the whole thing of trying, keep trying. There's being an artist, you kind of have to accept that there's a lot of rejection that's going to hit you. And you kind of have to kind of learn to lift yourself up in some ways and accept that, but also accept the fact that you're going to keep moving forward. All of us here, I think, have this itch to want to be creative, and I think that that's a huge driving factor. For me, that is a huge driving factor, but it's also a challenge for me in the sense of what I try to think about having representation out there and trying to put myself into places that I feel like I never in my wildest dream thought that I could be showing in. Right now I have a solo show at the Richmond Art Center, and I'm really happy about that. Very far and few times that I've had solo shows in that way, but I'm very proud of that. I'm also very proud to still have work here being represented in that way, this gallery to me, and the two individuals that, you know, are part of it in that way, it's a very special place. It represents a lot of different work, but it also represents a huge forum in that, or opens up to a huge forum in that way to have discussions about things that I don't see happening in other galleries so much in that way. And to me, those things are very important. So I think, overall, I think that the most important thing is that you need to have belief in what you're trying to do and keep moving forward. And, you know, there's definitely a lot of different routes. Like people have mentioned some of them here. There's social media. There's, you know, people get to know other artists because it's word of mouth too. Somebody will say, hey, I just saw a show and I think your work will fit in there, or whatever in that sense. So it's a lot of luck and a lot of hard work, but you have to kind of keep moving. And you have to keep making the work to kind of keep moving. So that's one important thing, keep making the work.
Thanks, Louise. I'm just going to add, just putting on my curator hat here for a minute, that one thing that when I see a submission come in, if it's an artist I don't know, I always go to their website or their social media because I want to see the body of the work. And what I love about each of you here is that you have a viewpoint, you have a perspective. It doesn't matter what medium you're working in. Your pieces may be very dissimilar, but there's a thread, always a thread between your work, whether it's over the course of a year or decades. You have a perspective, and I can't even explain always what that means, but I know it when I see it. I've looked at thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces of work, but you each have that, and I think that's really important, regardless of where you're submitting, to always stay true to who you are, and like each of you has referenced, don't chase the shiny thing that you think somebody else wants, because you have it already, and just don't give up on it. Stay true to who you are, because that, to me, is the most important thing in deciding to show someone's work. Even if I'm not the craziest about that particular piece, what matters is the body, and that you as artists are expressing something so fundamental, and I'm going to see that in every single piece you do, no matter what it is. I'm going to see that you are expressing something that is meaningful to you. So,
Following up on thank you, Courtney, that was really interesting to hear. And following up on what Louise was saying, talking about the persistence, which I think is the theme that each of us has been talking about, is persistence. And one of the things, I have a long career working in the performing arts as an administrator and fundraiser. There's always a lot of disappointment, a lot of repositioning, and a lot of reinvention within that field of working the independent part of it, not within the institutions. But one of the things that I've been able to transfer into my practice as a visual artist, which sounds weird to say, is every experience, we're here for expansion as human beings, and every experience that we have, good, bad, or ugly, contributes to that expansion. And so, we may be showing and not selling, but the win is showing. The win is learning to communicate about your work in another conversation. Because this field, the creative field, is nothing but a series of small steps. And there's a lot of discouragement along the way, but the discouragement needs to be taken eventually as a lesson so that it can be transferred into like, okay, I'm discouraged. What can I do differently next time? And then taking the step again with that information. And I think that is how we build careers, because we get to know our process, we get to know ourselves, we get to know how to express our audience with each experimental step. So it is a process. It's not a, it's, and you know, as they say, it's not a sprint. It's a journey, so you might as well buckle in and enjoy it.
I have a request. For the next round of questions, will each of you point out your work in the gallery? I think it'll help us have a little more context for what you're saying. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Uh-oh, what's happening?
No, but
What's happening? Can you explain it? So we know.
We need to turn off the microphones in our meetings.
Hello. I think one thing I'm curious to dig into a little more, y'all alluded to this, is that I'm still a newcomer to this world, and I don't think I've met somebody who said, an artist who said, I love the way galleries function, generally. I love the way the art industry functions. And, you know, if you had asked me before coming into this world, who should galleries serve? I would have said the artists and the community. And I don't think that, in large part, that's the reality of how a lot of institutional galleries work. So, and implicit in a lot of y'all's appreciation for this space is some concern or distaste for how the wider gallery and museum world functions. So I'm curious to dig specifically into what makes this space different to you, and how can we all, as community members who want to support the arts and love the chance to get to witness your work, how can we bring the world closer to one where you like what the gallery world looks like, where maybe more spaces look like this? Yeah, curious to hear more about that.
My piece is this pink one behind that says, I wish my uterus shot bullets so the government wouldn't regulate it. But as far as gallery spaces, it's interesting because I have my first solo show going on right now through Slate Contemporary Galleries offsite at Oakland City Center. Now, I was not of the caliber to be one of their represented artists. I'm very happy to have this solo show, and I've learned a lot from the curator from that. But I really was intrigued by what you said about you were trying to search for, create an open studio vibe. Because when I first started doing this, I wasn't doing open studios. I started doing that. And through ArtSpan, through Drawing Room, through a lot, I guess I've lived in San Francisco almost 40 years, but I feel like this whole other world opened up of people, some have been artists their whole lives, some are like me where they kind of fell into it through a bunch of series of other things that happened and were pursuing it. But I do feel like I still feel very intimidated by what I think I walked into Slate Contemporary Gallery once, but I don't know. I guess I don't feel like I'm of that world. So I feel much more comfortable in much more of a community built, a space like this that is much more accessible and diverse and representative, and I feel like it exists to serve the artist. But one other thing I really wanted to encourage people is there's a lot of resources in the Bay Area, and also now that, after COVID, I really was doing like the San Francisco Artist Network series about, his name's Stephen Wagner, who did these online workshops, and it was like, and it was how your website should look, how to approach a gallery, how to create a body of work. That was like, I really didn't think of that before. And so I really just did step by step what he said, and it really worked. And so I really encourage other people to, to use those resources. They're pretty affordable, and it really is I felt like it really was for the novice, which was me at the time. But anyway, I just really appreciate what you're about here at the Drawing Room. It's just that it's a very strong community feeling. It's super fun. I mean, like the first show, it was kind of the first time we were coming out of the pandemic, and they were just like the place to be. It was coming to these drawing room events, and it was so much fun. But you really created a wonderful community space, and and it felt very San Francisco, or very much of the Bay Area, and I just really valued it, and still do.
So I opened an art gallery because I met these guys by accident. I had applied for my boss at the time, Clinton Bowden, to be in one of their shows because he was like, oh, they're really cool, we should apply to this. And I was accepted to the show having not submitted anything, so I was like, I showed up and I was like, I think you made a mistake. And they're like, no, we have this little room for you. You seem interesting. See what you can do. So that's, and then I roped my sweet, beautiful musical husband in to help me because it wasn't nearly noisy enough in the room I was making. And that's kind of how I got involved. And then I came by to chat with them and be like, we should take over the Transamerica Pyramid because it's at 97% empty and we can get like, we're gonna do this thing, we're gonna fund it through marijuana, it's gonna be great. And they were like, or you could just open your own gallery and see how it goes. And I was like, huh, okay, I'll do that. So I'm now on my third iteration of my gallery, and my business partner is sane and stable and amazing. And she does not let me do as cool stuff as happens here. She's much more like, it has to be, somebody has to want to buy it. Whereas here, you guys are much more in the market of ideas, and we are much more in the market of objects. That being said, we've definitely followed the ethos where we build community around what we're doing, and we have comedians that use the space every Monday night because comedians need to practice too, and why shouldn't they be in an art gallery inside of a ceramic studio? Like, come on. And we have like all kinds of other events, and we do wacky music things because people are like, you guys seem like people who are into noise music, and we're like, are we? Okay, yeah, I guess we are into noise. And I think that that's actually the future model of art as business. I think that the old model with the gatekeeping and the white boxes and everybody in there should pass for like the dominant paradigm is not the future. I think that's really kind of dead. It's kind of like, it's like this large language model. It's just like the average boring past. And I think the future is really highly specific and highly localized and connected with the people who surround the physical place where you go and do analog things like listen to someone play a saw with a violin bow or whatever. And I think that's what the beauty of this space is it's highly localized and it's highly specific. And it's also highly inclusive. Like it brings in, you know, you can come in here and draw on a table, and it's gonna be your first time drawing ever, but you're in community drawing, and like we have a version of that, but it involves more comedians. But yes, and so I think that's really important, and I think this represents the future, and it also kind of represents our ancestral past, like a long ago past, where like you would have these places where people would do mystical, cool stuff that's we now call art, but you know, and taps into sharing the local culture and like sharing, you know, giving you a place to reconnect with things that happened long ago, and I think that's the future of business. That's why I put all of my savings into my gallery, and I think that's why these guys spend all their time, money, effort, and attention on this as well. So, yeah.
You got that right.
Yeah.
I just want to say a couple things too about that. Part of the beauty of what we're able to do is we have made these relationships with building owners or people who hold space that don't know what to do with them fell into my lap by being accessible to the public. When I had my small space on 23rd, I couldn't have an all-inclusive open call. I tried, but only like 4 people applied to the first show. And then after that, I was like, oh, more. And then I got a bigger space, and Brittany and I started working together, and we did the Women Rising show. And the beginning of that was never, actually, I'm a terrible business person, in that I don't ever think about the monetary side of hosting an exhibition. I don't look at how much money are we gonna make on the show. What I wanna see is how many perspectives can we get around one word or a theme that is central to every single human, but not everyone's gonna show up or care. But it's gonna really resonate with a lot of people. So the only way we can do that is to have huge space. So the first huge space was the one on Mission, right? 2,600 square feet for me was insane. It's the size of this whole bay, but all wall. How do you feel that? You feel it by letting everybody in. If people want to play, let's go. And back to the sliding scale, our submission fees, just for the record, are sliding scale $5 to $20 or $5 to $25, but they're not required. We don't use that as a barrier of entry to get in because there are a lot of things I don't appreciate or like about the art world, in that art has become, it's a product. We sell it, it's a consumer item. There's so much behind art that has nothing to do with consumption. And who determines the price of these things? So as an artist, like, you know what? I would rather make art that I feel I'm asking a fair value, but I would rather also diversify myself. If people want to collect my work, how can I make things they can afford? Because I really want every single person to have a piece of my art on their body or in their home. And I think a lot of artists feel the same. Not all. I don't want to speak for everybody. But I think that having a way for the more people to participate, making it accessible, it's the same thing with space. Like, this space we're sitting in right now is the most accessible space in the Mission. Like, I think hands down. Because of its central location to BART, it's a thoroughfare between so many junctures of neighborhoods. This is magic. So, how do we harness that magic and how do we hold it? For artists, we let as many in. We let as many people feel like they're a part of this community and this family as we possibly can. I'm not here to represent, I've never set out to represent any artist simply because I am an artist. I don't want to be an art dealer. Gross, like I don't want that. I want to be a facilitator of opportunities for artists so they can see and realize what it is they're capable of doing. That's not up to me. If you want to come, you want to get your shit up on the wall and do it amazing, do it. We've had spaces where I was able to rent a scissor lift to hang art off the ceilings, to activate every square inch of a building. And nobody can tell me no. So, that is my creative practice. I get to see how many ways we can break the rules or push the limits of the spaces that we're in. Not really break the limits, but how do we do things that are different? The windows of this space, we painted the No Kings logo on the windows in response to the police department telling us to blur our windows up. So I had one of our high school students come here, and I was like, I would like you, I'm going to show you how to do it. I want you to paint these on every window exactly the same. That is an art installation. It serves this like amazing purpose of showing solidarity to tens of thousands of people who walk by here. No one's vandalizing our space. No one's breaking our windows. We're representing all the people who believe the same thing. And that's important and impactful. And I think that's all I really care about as an artist in my own way. And also like giving opportunities to all of you and all the people who you know have been rejected a gajillion times. They've paid money to participate, to pay to play. Like, we do the best we can to curate these shows as beautifully as we can, so no one feels like they're at a swap meet and they're not at some, like, closeout thing, you know? They're actually in a space where we do as much intention as we possibly can, because Courtney's a professional. She was, like, a real curator.
Yeah, I want to respond to this, this thing about monetization and value. I think as an artist, and I think as audience or collectors, anybody who is in the room, it is one of the hardest and trickiest and fraught things that we deal with as artists, as collectors. things that has been a struggle as an artist who's very early on in my journey is understanding the value of my art. And one of the things that was this turning point in the way that I conceived of my art and I conceived of the importance of what I was doing came from something that you told me. So the piece that I have is this one over here on the wall. It is a figure seated. It is a painting of 23rd and Mission. And it is a painting that I was out doing some shoot photography, and as soon as I got back and I saw this photo, I was immediately compelled to make this painting. And this was in super hyper local. And obviously I want my stuff to sell. And because selling is that sort of ultimate arbiter of your value, but it is only your value in the capitalist sense. It is your value in the capitalist sense. And when we were doing super hyperlocal, and you were talking about power, a lot of power comes from capitalism, but that's not the power that you've created. That is irrelevant. And so it is this notion of art and community, and the drawing room is not, I wouldn't say gallery in that way. The way that you utilize space and bring community together is something different. It is something that is taking power away from capitalism, which is very rare and difficult to do in this age that we live in. And this is one of the primary ways that I find the drawing room to be so important for San Francisco and for art and for community in general. And this is one of those things that I think we grapple with every day. And I've lived in San Francisco for 25 years. I have a day job that is not art because this is an expensive place to live. You cannot live here and not be in the capitalist system. It is a structure that we are forced into. And this is my way of, you are providing me a way of fighting against that in a way that I do not have on my own. So I appreciate that.
Just for the record, all the people who allow us to take on spaces they own, they have the same mindset, right? Like everyone's trying to turn this whole system on their head because what we created here magically was not us. We just facilitated the things that the community needed that emerged on their own, like communal table. That was people coming around on Friday night, just wouldn't leave because we had a drawing table set up with really nice pens and paper. And I was like, I can't tell people to go. They're doodling, like what? Like what? We haven't formalized this. Now communal table, like we have like 1,000 people on drawing over there that I don't even know how many thousands of people have drawn. And you can't believe things and the messages that people feel inclined to leave. And they don't care the fact that it's gonna be for here forever. We're not sharing it, we're not selling it. I'm not grinding it up and making new paper with it. We're keeping it for something. But anyway, thank you. I appreciate you. All of what you said. Thank you.
Something to say.
I'm just going to pick up the thread of community because the key of community is people showing up. And I think that is what makes a space successful and relevant. And as individuals in this era that we're in, of screens and comfort at home, getting out of the house, going out, seeing things, supporting artists, no matter what it is, music, dance, theater, visual art, getting out, seeing it, talking about it, that is what builds community. So we have places that are kind of like churches and homes, like this place, which creates the temple for the community. But it really is the community showing up that makes the difference and makes it relevant. So show up.
Thank
Thank you to those who showed up.
It's Friday night, baby. Where's everybody? You're all here. I love it.
I think one just small thing I wanted to add was that another thing that struck me from talking to people about galleries, gallery owners, artists and art dealers is that not a lot of them are artists themselves who run the spaces that determine whose work gets to be shown. So I think that something as simple as having an artist who can empathize with the people who they are showing makes a difference to me and has been impactful to how I understand this space.
So, my boyfriend and I, we also do an art table, we call it Art in the Park in Berkeley. And I started working with kids about a year ago, more than a year ago, at a forest school. So, and I'm an artist, so that I was in charge of their art projects and programs and stuff. And yeah, just being, even the idea of taking it outside of a building and hearing sounds and conversations. And it's like an open table. We bring whatever materials we have, and it's open for all ages. So sometimes the kids are more in the space, and there's been times when we had mixed ages, which is awesome because the children remind you how to play, and the adults can teach you technique. And yeah, I think for me, when I think about gallery spaces and community spaces, I think about what is the theme of the show. Does it resonate with me? Stay with that. But also how accessible is it for people to go? Even hours. You guys are so open and available time here. Where some spaces are like you have to make appointments and it's only a certain time. That doesn't feel fair for the artists that are in there because maybe their piece is for somebody who has never been there yet. So, yeah, just looking at access through time, availability, through space. It's so awesome that you have a team that help to draw people in and talk because some artists are introverted and we need extroverted people. I have a friend who's really extroverted and she's been awesome about advertising me because I'm I'm not good about talking about myself. But all of that just ties to how we need each other. We need spaces to create together, to talk about it, and teach each other because everyone here, through all of their experiences, they've mastered a skill and they can teach this. Pass it down to generations, inspire other people to mesh things together. And it's just exercising that creative muscle that can be applied to anything in life, I'm sure we all are creative in other ways. The way we cook, the way we put our outfits together, the way we structure our sentences. So, yeah, more spaces where we're encouraged to just exist.
One little thing I want to say is that I think on the projection factor that we get so much, I think a lot of creative people give up their creative drive to continue as artists because they don't have a support system or they didn't have someone who said, hey, wow, that's amazing. Keep doing that, you should show that, you should figure out a way to share that. That's the thing, right? And Courtney and I are really intentional about giving artists the opportunity to share their work at all levels of their experience and expertise because learning comes from that sharing. Putting your art on the wall, having thousands of people see it, especially when it's in a venue like this that is so high profile. Most artists who are showing on the walls here don't even know that, in a Valencia Live event, 10,000 people will walk through this gallery and have their eyes on your work. And to your point, it's important that the work isn't a place where people can see it. We as artists are given opportunities to do things that no one goes to, and they're not going to find it, they're not going to see it. This show behind us, some of these pieces, it's chronological, from left to right, 2018 to 2025. The work in 2018 and 2019 were only seen by not that many people. So now we're able to get some of those pieces back into this space with this high-profile location. Save up so much of the work on the wall. We've been able to give it a second life and a second layer of exposure to the public, and I think that's really important, right? You go to certain places and galleries aren't open, but like on the weekends, or they have very limited hours, 12 to 4. You know, if you have a family or you have a job, or you're an artist and you don't have transportation, or you're in whatever your situation is, not saying artists don't have transportation, but there are obstacles along there's so many obstacles to keep you from looking at art and seeing it and engaging in it, except for maybe a museum or a big institution. The smaller venues are closing all the time and they're fragile. So we have to figure out, I don't know, how to create more of this. And not just us, but other ways of thinking about how art can be engaged in that's not a consumption or an institutional experience. But it's for children. It's to enable young people to feel empowered, to know more, and think that that's their right to go into a gallery. Like, the expectation is they're going to come in and be touched. That's it. Maybe they're going to buy it, but
One of the things I want to say is that I paint every day, and I paint in my studio at my house, and I paint alone. And being a painter, often you're in front of your workspace 8 hours, 10 hours, or however long you do it. But coming here, I met so many artists. I met so many people who are now friends. We text each other, say, hey, have you heard about this show? Have you heard about that? I'm going to this, I'm going to that, do you want to go? And every show I meet with people. And I think that builds the community that in some ways I didn't have. And so that's one of the things I love about this, is that I get to meet people that I would have never met. We come from so many different places, and we're standing there looking out, and I'm like, oh, is that yours? Tell me about it. Like, different people. And they tell me about it, and I realize that they have something in common with me, so I tell them about mine, and we end up connecting. So that's great. I also have a group called the Art Salon that we started in 2013. Most of those people also show here. And so that encourages them every day to say, oh, the show's coming up, I need to paint something, I need to do something. And we encourage each other to do something new and different and expand. So, and that happens once a month. And that didn't come out of this, but this definitely supports that. Because some of the people in the show had never showed anywhere until they showed here. So, that's been good.
I'd just like to add that Renee and I, and Jonah and Alice and Rod into these conversations as well, is that there's this fundamental tension between wanting to elevate the work and present it in a way that does it justice. And we often question whether hanging art salon style amidst 100 other pieces, does it achieve that? Does it somehow sell it short? We do our wall tags with this narratives, which take up a lot of space, and I'm always fighting so hard to keep those wall tags. But I think I've come to the conclusion now, doing it this way for 5 years plus, is that it does do it justice, and I don't want it to be a precious jewel box, like Katie said, white box gallery. I don't want that. That is not what I'm personally aspiring, if I graduate from this, to be that. I don't ever want to go back to that. I spent so many hours sitting in galleries where one person walks in a day. And boy, that's depressing, because you really, really want to share this work and talk about it, and if no one walks in the door, it just doesn't matter. And that's why I love this place so much, because there's always someone to talk to about the art. And so the only thing we can do is just do our best to do it justice, to give it the space. Sometimes it's a little too low to the ground, sometimes it's a little too high, but I think it's worth it in service of what we're trying to do overall. And also to provide that space where you can meet your peers, share your experiences. So I think, it doesn't get old. I don't know, is it getting old for you, Renee? I mean, I want to keep doing this because it has value, and not every show has to have 100 people. Some shows can have 4, or 5, or 10. The number doesn't matter. It's just because we bought into this model already, right? We think it works for the spaces that we're in and what we're doing. Okay. Oh, sorry.
I forgot to say my piece is around the corner. It's purple. It's called Have You Forgot About Love?
I want to, well, okay, so we can, at the end of this pretty soon, I would love to walk around and just point out everyone's work too, because we have a lot of work that can't be moved off the wall. I will say I get tired of the open call, not the open call, I get tired of the salon style process, so sometimes it is a sea of chaos that we have to curate. And I get over it pretty quick because each show we do, there is a set of underlying themes that emerge that we didn't predict, we don't know, and then it gives us opportunity for curation on the wall, right? So we try to let as many artists whose work's tied to theme, they wrote about it, it's relevant, and we also really want to try to get as percentage, I don't know what the percentage of new artists coming into the fold, right? If we're only showing the same artists every time, then it feels like an inclusive or exclusive situation where it's everybody's friends. I don't want that ever. I want to actually get every artist in here to pitch this to their whole support system. So next time maybe we have, like this show, we know all these artists, but every show we've done has had probably a 50% or more new artist rate of participation, which is exciting because those are people I didn't know in 2018 or 2019. The first Wind Rising show, in the first high school art show. There are different shows that break up that, the salon style open call thing. High school show is one of them that we do that we're extremely, that is a passion project for us that is extensive and magical because we focus, it's the only show we actually focus 100% on San Francisco youth and the schools that are within the city. And we like go out and find these kids and like put effort into getting them to feel empowered to participate because it starts at their age. It starts in the beginning before they go to college and they drop out of art, or before they drop out of art in high school. You know, we want to give these kids an opportunity to see art in their next chapter of life. So that show, I can talk about it for hours. That inspires me because that's when it changed for me as an artist is high school. I made a huge decision on my own that is all I was ever going to do. And I was in a fight for it. And when I started the drawing room, I fought for that too. I had to figure out how to make this work. I had to figure out how to be self-sufficient on my art practice. And the only way I could do that is to bring other artists into the realm because being a solo person and trying to survive in a big sea is hard. So you find other artists who you connect with and you bring them in and you work together and you show this like spirit of collaboration and you throw in. And this is a throw in. You all have thrown in. We did the Super Hyper Local show, just a really quick point on that. That was our only show we actually, like every single piece has to be for sale. Because people aren't buying art. And I have to say that art does have to sell to support the place it's being shown, the business or the enterprise showing it. Artists need that also because that is empowerment. That is subsidizing your studio practices, your materials, it's all the things that go into being an artist as an entrepreneur. And also it feeds your spirit a little bit when someone's like, I'm gonna give you some money for that. And I'm gonna live with it forever. And that's, and I want more of that. And I want more people, actually, I want to support the artists, but I also want, I am driven to inspire people who do not know how to buy art or know how to make a decision about that. To make a decision, pull the trigger, baby. Buy it now. Hang it in your bedroom, over your bed, over your wherever you see yourself every day. Do it because it's going to feed your soul and it's going to connect you. And you're going to have a story to share with your friends when you have a party next time. Whatever.
Although I really have to say, so I don't think that this is not a painting that I don't think. I don't know how to say this, but it is not something I don't think that somebody's going to want to necessarily hang in their home. I don't know if it brings vibes or is it kind of the sort of things that I think people are going to want to hear or want to think about because they do paint about a lot of things that I don't think that people want to think about.
I have a giant painting like opposite my bathroom, so I look at it while I brush my teeth, of two children who were for sale, like in a market in China, painted by Hung Leo. And like it's fucking 5 foot by 5 foot, so it doesn't even fit over the picture rail.
That's good to hear. I still feel that there is going to be a struggle for pieces like this one. But you know, to that point, you said something to me which was also very empowering. And I think that this is the other thing about the drawing room is when you encounter the drawing room and you encounter Renee and Courtney, when you suddenly get are these advocates, you get a coach suddenly that is super valuable. And one of the things I was talking to Renee about was I want my piece to sell, and we were talking about pricing, this whole thing, and she's like, Koshi, it's okay if your stuff doesn't sell. It doesn't make it less important. And that was huge. It is something that I needed to hear. It's something that we need to hear as artists that, again, like getting back to this thing about selling, obviously I love to sell. It's like, it feels good. I subsequently made these small paintings for Super Hyper Local, and I think you guys still know them.
They were amazing. They were on cardboard. They were so unbelievably $40 magic, way overpriced. Sorry.
And that type of accessibility is also important. And that's a thing where I don't want to be too precious or get too caught up in tie ego to value from a monetary perspective. And that's a lesson that you guys are teaching me. It is a lesson that I'm learning from you that I don't think that I would have really been able to get through without having mentored you. So this again is, I think, another important thing that the drawing room again is it's this other thing. You guys are something completely different. And total side note to dovetail to Thomas's comment, I met this artist in the Michael J. garage. Her name is Jessica Nasmortel. And we had connected each other on Instagram or whatever. But then she was in the Super Hyper Local. And through her, I met this other artist, Jonathan Fetzer. And Nasmortel. And we connected, whatever, it was like chemistry, the three of us, we connected, and then we ended up going to Tanforan and doing like this thing after Super Hyper Local, the three of us, we met up and we went to Tanforan because we're fascinated with this like death of third space capitalism and this like liminal space that's happening right there. It's also happening at like the San Francisco Center. Anyway, it was a connection that was made through here. And
it was an internment camp.
And it was also an internment camp. There's a lot going on in Tanforan. But yeah, it was one of those things that really pushed it over the edge in terms of making that connection to other artists. And it's like now we've formed this thing, and that would not have happened had I not been in Super Hyper.
I kind of feel like we need to have a dating app or something related to what we're doing because sometimes these relationships are formed because the artists are hanging next to each other and they're at an event and they're next to each other like, oh wait, what? Community, boom, that's it. It's not hard. You just have to have a space to make it. It's something that people can all engage in. It's crazy.
I just wanted to add something on your point. My work is not on the wall, so I brought the one piece that I happen to have right now, which is this. And this is actually a photograph. It's one shot of a river in Scotland that I took last year as part of the series. And this is just a picture on canvas. So when I was thinking about, thank you, that looks lovely. What I was thinking about when I was hearing you talk was a very wise friend of mine said, it's taken me years to move beyond family and friends and actually go see the public like on a regular basis with my work. And I've had a lot of encouraging conversations with some really brilliant people along the way. And one of my close friends, who's also an artist, said, as soon as you publish your work and you put it out there, it is no longer yours. And I have thought about that and meditated on that quite a bit because that is exactly the truth. You put it on the wall here, it's not yours anymore. Somebody else is going to come in and they're going to see it and they will either resonate with it and want to be a part, want it to be a part of their life, or they won't. But that's up to them. So your job is kind of like raising kids. You just let it go. And it goes on with its own life. And occasionally it comes back to you. And, but it just keeps going. It has its own life. There is a spirit in everything we do. And that spirit talks to people. It resonates with certain people, and other people it doesn't resonate with. So we just try and find, where do we find our people? Where's my spirit who's going to walk in and see this and say, oh, I understand that. And I'm fascinated by it. To me, all my pictures have a lifespan. And I will keep them around for a while. And if like some of them, I'm like, okay, I've had this one for 6 months and it's dead now. And it goes away. Or it becomes cut up and turned into another multimedia piece. Or something else becomes like, oh, that's still speaking to me. And I've been looking at this picture for 10 years. So that's a lifespan that just continues giving. That's what I call it, giving. It's still giving, it's still giving. So I think that for the viewer, because artists are personal, not only for the creator, but for the person who is experiencing the art, that you just it's like dating. It clicks, and sometimes it grows on you, and it doesn't always click right away. So it's nice to be able to have a space where you can put something up for a month, and if somebody, people don't walk into spaces usually, to my experience, and drop $5,000 a piece, but they might come back. At least not the people I know. But they might come back and think about it, and then come back again and think about it, and then they might drop $5,000. So they just need that time to develop a relationship with the work. So don't put that out there. Don't. It is what it is, and it's beautiful, and you loved it enough to present it to the world. Let the world have it. Let the world adopt it as it sees best fit. Thank you.
There's something so beautiful about places like this, and people like this, and being able to see all of this artwork, and it's so inspiring, and me and Courtney, they're so encouraging, and it's just, I appreciate it so much, and how they see it's so vulnerable putting that work up there, and I've always been scared of putting work out there, and I worry about what others will think about it, or what people will say when they see it, and it's one of those things where, so many of these people are probably feeling a similar way in the back of their head, like, you never know what people are feeling, but artwork out here. She's showing, this was one of the photos that I had for those. So there was a project where I had taken photos of people's scars, essentially. So essentially, part of this project was actually something that's supposed to expose such a vulnerability some people have, which is an insecurity a lot of people have, is of their scars, or things that are known as blemishes that are such a part of yourself, but it shows that you're healing. It's growing with you over time, and it stays with you. And I think a lot of the art here, it stays with me in my mind. I'll see this work, and inside of my mind, it's always there. I'll think about artwork I saw 10, 15 years ago, or like she was saying, that encouragement is important, because along the way, some people, they'll lose that spark. They won't know how to continue, or if they should. And I remember even when I was younger, I would bike around the city at night a lot, which I do now still too. And near my house, I found many posters of what looked like a college student or high school
almost like someone had gotten rid of that part of their life, and it's almost sad to see because that art was so beautiful, and I still kept some of those posters or some of those photos that'll keep up in my room to like think about it in that form of it's just so nice. You never know what you'll see, and that way of being connected is just so beautiful, and I really appreciate being able to be a part of something like this. And even though that monetization can be important in so many ways in a city like this, it's nice at times to not worry about that in forms of what you're showing. It doesn't have to be like, I need to sell this. It's like, oh yeah, that would be cool if it did, and I really enjoy seeing people appreciate it in that form, but it's not meant for that. It's meant to get it out there and have people see it. And I just love to view all the stuff that people want to show.
I think a nice way to start to wrap up would be if anyone of you who has so generously given your time to this as a question, might be a nice way to start to close up for the night.
I'm so glad we all know everybody so well. It's okay.
Or anything that artists felt they wanted to say before we finish, Luis.
I just kind of want to piggyback on what everybody has been saying about being a part of this community in general. To me, it's a very unique space in the sense that every show that I've come here, for one, I've enjoyed kind of the ideas that have come up to create the theme or the idea behind the show in that sense, and I've really appreciated seeing how each artist has been thinking about it and kind of creating work about that, whether it's for that first time to kind of express themselves through this exhibition, or this is something they pursue in general. So each exhibition that I come to see here, to me, it's always very, there's a lot of power in it in the sense of the emotion. It's a wide gamut of emotions in that sense of like from really powerful to funny to witty to devastating in that sense. And I think for me that to me is a successful gallery, because it's really allowing those kind of things that make us human to be reflected onto the person that's creating it, but also giving them that space. Personally, for me, I think I like work that really moves me in so many different ways, whether it's something that is very hyper-real or something that is abstract, but there's something about it that just really kind of has evoked something inside of me and created an emotion, or not created, but has allowed the emotions that are inside of me to kind of be sparked by them. And I see that in a lot of the work that when I come in here, and it's a wide range. And to me, I really love the salon style. To me it really evokes not only the history of the arts in that way, and kind of how things used to be displayed, but also just kind of gives an idea of the tapestry that exists among the art world, or the people, the artists that create the work in that way. And I think that's one thing that I really value about a space like the drawing room and Courtney and Renee, having a vision that allows that to kind of happen. And it just seems, I've come in here to drop off work, and there's work everywhere. And I've talked to Renee or Courtney, and it's just like, God, I don't know how we're gonna get this, blah, blah, put it together in a really thoughtful, caring way. And I think you take a lot of respect and pride and put it into that to try to kind of show the artists that you really value what they're doing in that way. And so for me, that's something that I really appreciate about being a part of this community. You know, I think it's like 5 shows that I've been a part of with you guys, and I really feel very fortunate to have fallen into this community in that sense. You know, I think the type of work that I do sometimes seems very personal. It's kind of, you know, the whole thing about being an artist, like you were saying, you work alone, and you're in your mind and your head, and you're creating something, and you think, or I think in my head, I'm thinking, this is really kind of something that I'm really need to do, for one, but also appreciating and having a sense that I'm accomplishing something. But then in the back of my head, I think sometimes I'm like, okay, is this going to resonate outside beyond what's in my head? And that's the beauty of it. When I get a chance to show the work, it is out of my control, and I love that. It's somebody else's experiences and history when they're walking in front of the work that they're bringing with them and seeing for themselves. And those things, I think, are very important to kind of remember, in the sense that it's another way of connecting to ourselves as human beings, that we all have had these kind of paths, whether they're individual or connected. We all have had these paths in that way, but the art itself kind of creates these bridges. And that's the way I kind of see it when I see people being moved or finding something in the work that I create, you know, that inspires them or moves them in a certain way. And so, you know, for me, I just want to say thank you, and I really appreciate the time, having had the time to say what I needed to say in that sense, but also hearing everyone else and what they've had to share this evening, and everybody that's come out tonight too. My piece, unfortunately, it's a very heavy, big piece, so I can't really bring it over here, but if you get a moment, it's a triptych, and it's made out of recycled materials. As I said, I live in Oakland, and there are 2 dresser drawers that I found on the street, and I repurposed them to create this triptych. And like I was talking about, it's about missing and murdered Indigenous women. And I feel like the material really connected to what I was trying to say. It's the discarding and the not thinking about of these individuals in that way. And so to me, it just kind of echoed in trying to pair the idea with the material in that sense. And the show was for this show that they had about that was called Consume Consumer, I think. And it was a very powerful show because it was a lot about the artist rethinking about waste and how to make it something else and bringing life to it in that way instead of just thinking about it, something that just exists as waste in that sense, because we live in such a disposable society. And so that piece kind of talked about a lot of that. So that's my 2 cents, so thank you very much.
I was just thinking about how having this table and everyone talking, having a platform to talk, it's very enriching for all of us to hear each other's stories and encourage each other. So that, to me, is very successful at your space. The artist talks have been, I've enjoyed them. I did my first one, and super emotional. I thought it was going to cry today someday. But these sort of spaces, or that kind of platform is good. I would encourage more galleries to do that, more art spaces to do that. And then what came to mind was like to see everyone's process of how they created their pieces. Maybe partnering with interns or someone, because not all of us have the time or patience to deal with technology to record ourselves. And that would be cool to be like, oh, you know, this is what I'm making, but you don't see the final process until you come to the gallery space. So kind of encouraging people to be like, encouragement here, wisdom here, and I really hope that you guys can stick around and continue to grow.
I'll talk for 1 second about that. I'm gonna use this microphone, it seems to be working about.
Okay, so, ooh, wow, it is a better microphone. I can just whisper. So, thank you, each of you, for your beautiful insights, your sharing your work. We've loved having you here, and each of you has had a pivotal impact on what we've done here. So, thank you. We have 2 open calls. We have 1 open call for sure, which is the Monster Art Show, which we just opened, and that is a show we did at our Clement Gallery. It was a lot of fun. We only had 4 artists in that show. It was very small. This time we opened it up to an open call because apparently there are a lot of monster makers out there very upset about not being included in that show. I don't know if you noticed, but I love the idea of inclusivity. I'm kind of wired in the way where I see a person standing alone in the corner, I'm gonna go over and get them and make sure that they have what they need and they feel like they're comfortable and they feel like they belong. And that's part of my deep core value system and part of what's driven these open calls. I also think the impact of having a lot of different voices about one single thing is really powerful for people because it can tap into a lot of different people in different ways. We're working about the space. So the building's for sale. Unfortunately, it's worth like nothing, but it's for like a really big ticket price. So what we're trying to do is find ways to partner with other organizations to keep this space for as long as we can. And I'm not talking about like 3 months, but like for a few years. But we don't know yet. So we're looking for that potential opportunity because right now, like this space has access to so much. There are a lot of ways that we can utilize what we have in this space as an asset to share with other organizations that really need a little bit of space. Maybe they need exhibition space, maybe they need workspace, maybe the days we're closed, they need rehearsal space or meeting space. There's a lot. So I'm only telling you that tonight because these are things that like our community is deep and broad, and a lot of times we don't know a lot of the organizations out there in the arts that are struggling to survive because they can't afford it. And we are struggling to survive because we can't afford it, but we do have access to something that is really, the value of the space is worth 1,000,000 times more than what its dollar amount is because its impact on the people who engage in it, who trip and stumble into this gallery and experience communal table, buy a book for $1 and support our young program. And then also look at this epic art show and learn about all this incredible history here and all these people. So we're providing these multifaceted ways for people to touch the arts and feel like they're part of this. And so, you guys know this, I don't have to tell you. You're all so deeply invested in this already. I'm hopeful and so optimistic, as I usually am about these things. I kind of feel like we're going to land on our feet. We've had 9 lives, and we're at like 9 more. But that does not mean we are not actively fundraising. This Art is Light exhibition is 7 years of activating space. And I can't believe what we've accomplished. Courtney and I have done insane things. We're still processing it, like going through the chronology and the timeline of this. I didn't even remember half of it, honestly, because I was recovering from horrible things. But kept going, right? I think that there's another message about pushing and keeping things going. So please spread the word about what we're doing. Share our open calls, the Monster Art Show. We have another show called Sanctuary, which will hopefully be in January, and that is another open call. And that is kind of our, well, in the beginning I thought it would be like the political show, but it's really about what Sanctuary means to people. And our themes rotate according to what we feel is really relevant. So who knows what's after that, right? Okay, do you want to say anything else? No?
Just thank you.
this organization. We can't do this without you. We really appreciate you just showing up. I'm always thrilled to get each of your submissions for whatever show it is. Makes me really happy. So thank you.